Hello, this is David Wiedemann with 5 Minutes of Thought, episode number 26, Mastery, Moving from Self to Context. What's the big idea? This is it. There's a trajectory that we all follow in our professions from a position of what we call adequacy to a position of mastery. And we think it's important to occasionally reflect on where we are in the trajectory, because it's important every now and then to step back and take a look at how things are going and see if things can get better. So we're going to help you do that today by talking first about mastery, second by giving you a lot of examples, third by asking so what, and fourth by reflecting, and hopefully wondrous things will ensue. We're going to start talking about mastery by talking about what it's not. Adequacy. Here's a competent professional doing his job, and he conceives of his ability to do the job as a kind of an internal thing. In him, there's a sort of a machine of knowledge and smarts and thoughts and conviction and ideas and problem-solving skills. That's kind of in him, and it kind of works sort of like an easy bake oven with an in and an out. Problems come in this way. The machine of his internal processing works, and out comes solutions. And that's great. Things get done. The problem is that if all your thinking and work and processing gets done in a kind of internal machine, then you're not really engaging the people around you as much as you can, and a kind of psychosocial gap is created between you and them. And you're not tapping into all the ideas and thoughts and feelings and rich resources that there are available to you in your context. The mastery model comes at things a little bit differently. Instead of conceiving of her work as an internal process, she conceives of it as a relational process. She's aiming to build connections with the people around her, and she's encouraging them to build connections between each other. And she knows that if she does this, all the processing, thinking, knowledge, skills she's ever going to need are going to be there because she's drawing on everybody's gifts. Instead of building an internal machine of meaning, she's building an external machine of meaning, engaging people in it. So problems will occur in the context, solutions will occur in the context. And if she's doing it right, her role will actually decrease. The context will grow to do its own processing. And that's how you know she's been successful. Okay, let's look at some examples. I'm going to start by talking about the two teachers, the adequate teacher and the master teacher. What has the adequate teacher got in his internal machine of meaning? He's got his subject matter expertise. Everything he learned in teaching school, everything he's learned on the job in years of teaching. And that's all great stuff. He uses it to create a curriculum. But the problem is that the curriculum essentially is kind of imposed on the students. I mean, they usually aren't getting to design the class that they're in. And that's the normal way that we teach, so that's okay. The problem is, of course, there's a gap, psychosocial gap develops between the students and the teacher. So if we want to go into the more of a mastery space, we've got a teacher who has the exact same subject matter expertise and experience, but she puts it in abeyance momentarily and just wonders about the students. She takes her camera of curiosity, looks at the students and says, what do these people need? What does this individual student need, and how can I help them? She goes to her knowledge base and pulls out the right thing for the student at the right time. And then she does this for everybody and comes up with a unique curriculum that she's built with them in partnership because she's thinking about not teaching coming from her mind to their mind, but teaching as a kind of an emergence, a relational emergence that's happening in the space. Hopefully, if she's good, she's getting them to talk to each other and use their cameras of curiosity on each other. And they're generating all kinds of interesting content as well. So instead of a class, you've got something more like a community of practice forming. And you know she's been successful if she actually decreases in importance to the functioning of this environment. That's ultimately her goal, is to be another learner among learners. Okay, now I'm going to go through 4 different professions really quickly by just trying to give the general approach of the adequacy and mastery perspective in each profession. So let's start with managers. Okay, the adequate manager is doing what we call managing. Everything he needs to know is in his head. He collects the data and he tells people what to do. He's making a lot of decisions for other people. Of course, we all know there's a psychosocial gap between the manager managing in this way and the people he manages. The mastery perspective on management is a little bit different. That manager isn't trying to decide everything in her head. She's building relationships, so she's communicating. She's just trying to talk and listen to everybody and get their perspectives and engage them in a context of management in which they're all playing a part. Okay, let's look at the two leaders. So the adequate leader leads similarly to the manager. His job is to envision where to go with the organization. He makes these internal calculus and he says, here's the plan. The leader coming from a more mastery position is trying to engage the community of people in the organization in leadership, decision making, recruiting strategic information, making a plan that everybody has some kind of a role in. Okay, let's look at consulting. This will be familiar to you if you watched 5 Minutes of Thought, episode 22, Helping. The consultant in the adequacy model is starting from a perspective of his or her own knowledge and skills and expecting to sort of propel those onto the client. The consultant working in the mastery space is looking for a relationship first and to bring in his or her skills later down the road. Let's talk about now colleagues, just people working together. So an adequacy model colleague relationship is one where you're expecting the relationship to work upon norms that you've internalized. And a mastery colleague relationship is one where you're inviting your other colleague to co-create the norms that you use because you're trying to create a context of collaboration where emergent ideas and forms are coming out of the space of trust between you. All right, you might ask, what's going on here? How is it that this adequacy and mastery trajectory can cohere across all these different domains? What's at the root of this? What's going on? I'm going to use this chart that we created for episode 1 to explain this. I'm going to change it around. Originally, the chart was about the difference between visible and invisible norms in the environment. I'm going to change this to make it about success. And I'm going to change visible to prefab knowledge and the invisible section to relational emergence. And I mean to show by this that the amount of influence that what you have in your own mind, your prefab knowledge, your ability to process internally, has on the overall success of something is relatively small. What has a bigger impact on the success of something are what I call relational emergences, things that come up from relationships between people in the context, things that just come out as you're working together. The trajectory as we shift from adequacy to mastery is from relying on prefab knowledge to bringing in more and more of the relational emergence. You might call that the mix of mastery, being able to combine what's happening in the environment around you with the things that you already know. We're at the so what stage. So what? Adequacy professional model and mastery professional model. This so what has 3 parts. Part 1, we're all following a trajectory from adequacy to mastery. Part 2, we can see this across 5 randomly chosen domains and probably just about any other professional area of expertise. Part 3 is the kicker. So what? Why does this matter? It matters because you might want to ask yourself occasionally, pause from the busyness of the world around you. Where am I on this trajectory? How would mastery and adequacy appear in my field? What would it take me to get to mastery, and how would I know if I'd made it? Okay, let's pause and reflect. Did this presentation trigger any thoughts? If so, grab onto those, reflect, and you may be on your own learning arc. And you're invited to participate in the cubicle challenge, which means stand up from behind your cubicle and see if you can't explain this to the person in the next cubicle. We talked about mastery today. We talked about examples of mastery. We asked so what, and we reflected, and hopefully wondrous things ensued. This has been 5 Minutes of Thought, episode number 26, Mastery from Self to Context. I am David Wiedemann. Come and visit us at 5mot.org. You can see a lot more of these 5 Minutes of Thoughts and a lot of other supporting materials. And today I leave you with an easy step forward. It's got 4 parts. So say you want to try out a little mastery in your work. Here's how you might do it. Pick yourself out a project or a conversation where you're engaging with other people, and then just put your camera of curiosity on yourself. How are you showing up in this conversation or project? More to the adequacy side or more to the mastery side? Ask yourself, what if I want to move a little bit more towards mastery? What would that mean? And then see if you can't take a little step forwards towards an environment that allows for emergence in relation and away from an environment that relies on you to have all your knowledge contained within yourself. If you try it out, let us know how it went by coming to drop us a line at 5mot.org, and have a great day.